What if you could walk through chaos, calm? What if no insult, no rejection, no failure could shake you again? Imagine becoming immune to drama, immune to disrespect, untouchable in your peace. This isn't about ignoring life, it's about mastering it. There's a switch inside you waiting to be flipped, and once it is, you'll never see the world or yourself the same way again. Mastering your reactions. You've felt it. That simmer beneath the surface when someone crosses a line, when a plan falls apart, when the day unfolds in ways you didn't expect. That heat rising in your chest, that urge to snap, to lash out, to reclaim control in the most immediate way possible. But here's the truth. The moment never truly owns you, unless you let it. What owns you is not the insult or the delay or the disrespect. What owns you is your reaction to it. And that, whether you see it or not, is entirely your choice. You don't need to explode. You don't need to run. You can stay right there in the middle of the storm and choose your response. That's where real power lives. Not in force, not in fury, but in presence. To stand still when the world tries to shove you, to speak with clarity when others shout to be heard, that is strength. And strength doesn't always make noise. Imagine a moment where someone tries to shake you, a stranger's rudeness, a coworker's betrayal, a friend's careless words. Now imagine your peace standing untouched. Their chaos passes through you, never finding a grip. That's not coldness, that's composure. You've made the decision long before the moment came that no one gets to own your state of mind but you. You prepare for these moments in the quiet hours, before the noise, before the tests. You train your eyes to see clearly. You train your thoughts to settle like still water. You walk into each day knowing storms may come, and yet you refuse to be swept up in them. You ground yourself, not by avoiding life's friction, but by building a mind that doesn't flinch. Picture yourself in a room where tempers flare and voices rise. You're not part of it. You observe, you understand, but you don't get dragged in. You respond only when it serves purpose. That's not indifference. That's leadership. That's power under control. Because the loudest man in the room is rarely the strongest. Often he's just the most frightened. There's no honor in being triggered by every small slight. No wisdom in needing to respond to every provocation. Ask yourself, what do you gain from proving yourself to people who don't even know who they are? Why let strangers steer your emotions like puppets pulling strings? You were not made to bend with every breeze. You were made to hold your shape in the face of pressure. When you master that, when your reactions belong to you and you alone, you walk differently. You speak less, but your words carry more. You do less, but your steps leave a mark. That is the man the world remembers, the one who could have broken but didn't. The one who chose stillness over spite and clarity over chaos, and in doing so became unshakable. Directing your focus, what unsettles your peace, isn't always the chaos around you, it's the spotlight of your own attention. The mind, left unguarded, wakes up chasing shadows. Before your feet even hit the floor, you're already tangled in worry, replaying conversations, anticipating conflict, doubting outcomes. The moment you give that chaos your focus, it grows roots. And whatever you feed with your attention, you grow. You don't simply see with your eyes. You see through the lens of what you choose to dwell on. The world isn't just what it is, it becomes what you make of it. When your gaze stays fixed on the cracks, the whole wall looks broken. But when you look for the structure holding it up, something changes. You begin to notice the strength. You begin to build on it. Consider how two people can face the same moment and walk away with completely different truths. One feels defeated by the rain, curses the skies, and retreats. The other sees an opening, soil softening, seeds ready to be sown. The event is the same, but the outcome is shaped by what they chose to focus on. That difference, it's not luck, it's training. It's awareness. It's choosing again and again where to place your mental energy. You can train your mind to look for the next step instead of the next threat. You can teach yourself to turn down the volume on noise and tune in to clarity. It starts with asking better questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what can I do with this? Not what's missing, but what can I build? This is how you move from survival to leadership, from reaction to intention. Now imagine living a day where your energy doesn't leak out through frustration or distraction, where your time isn't burned worrying about other people's opinions or measuring yourself against someone else's timeline. Instead, every bit of your attention is focused on creating, improving, building something that matters, even if it's just your own mindset. That kind of focus doesn't just help you accomplish more. It makes you harder to shake, harder to distract, harder to defeat. You're not here to chase every problem or entertain every thought. You're here to choose. And every time you choose where to place your focus, you're shaping your reality. You're either building something inside you or letting it crumble. There's no neutral. What you feed grows. So take a moment. What are you focusing on right now? Not in theory, not someday, right now. Is it making you stronger, sharper, calmer, or is it quietly draining the very strength you'll need later? You get to decide, because in the end, your focus is your steering wheel. Where it goes, your life follows, and the man who learns to control that, he doesn't just survive the storm, he learns how to walk through it with purpose, choosing stillness over noise. You wake each day in a world that never stops moving, not just in motion, but in noise, the kind that clutters the mind more than the streets. Everywhere you turn, people are chasing validation, shouting over each other, filling space with noise just to feel something. In that chaos, the rarest man is the one who stands still, not frozen, but focused. Stillness isn't inaction. It's the deliberate absence of distraction. It's the ability to move with clarity, not compulsion. To be still is to be present, not dragged into the past by regret, nor flung into the future by worry. It's the quiet strength of being rooted exactly where you are, unmoved by the winds that toss others around. While most people live in reaction, responding to pressure, to noise, to the next thing, you step back. You observe, you choose, and that choice is power. Imagine the mind is a calm lake. When undisturbed, it reflects the world with perfect clarity. But every thoughtless reaction, every worry, every emotional outburst, those are rocks thrown into the water. Ripples distort the reflection, and for many, the lake never settles. They live in constant motion, constantly stirred by everything around them. But you can choose to let the water still. You can choose not to throw the stone. This stillness doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. While others waste energy in endless movement, you conserve yours. You don't rush into every fight. You don't explain yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. You don't let every small wave push you off course. You act only when action is needed. And when you act, it's with impact. Stillness gives birth to insight. In the pause, the truth reveals itself. You begin to hear your own thoughts instead of the noise around you. You begin to notice which actions are yours and which are just reactions borrowed from someone else's urgency. In that awareness, you reclaim yourself. You begin to live not by pressure, but by principle. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made a decision from stillness, not from fear, not from pride, not because someone expected it, but from clarity? If your answer is rare, then so is your peace, but it's not out of reach. You find it when you slow down, when you stop feeding every ripple and start respecting the silence that follows. True power is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. And when you move from that place, not flinching, not chasing, but acting with full awareness, you become unshakable. Others will wonder how you stay calm in the noise, how you choose so well, how you walk so steadily. But they won't see the work. They won't see the stillness you built in the quiet. They'll just see the strength that rises from it. Living by your principles, not your moods, there are mornings when the weight of the world presses harder than usual, when your body feels slow, your mind cluttered, and your drive distant. On those days, quitting whispers sweetly. Cutting corners feels tempting. It's easy to say, not today, but that's when it matters most. That's when you find out who's in charge. Your fleeting feelings or the deeper part of you that remembers what you stand for. Moods are like weather, unpredictable, constantly shifting. One moment you're up, the next you're buried under frustration, doubt, or fatigue. If you let your mood steer the ship, you'll drift endlessly, pushed and pulled by every emotional wave. But if you've set a compass anchored by values that don't bend with the wind, you stay the course, no matter the storm. This is where your strength begins, not when things are easy, but when they're hard and you still choose the path you said you'd walk. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like doing this? You ask, is this aligned with the man I want to be? One question keeps you floating. The other roots you in purpose. That purpose doesn't demand perfection, it demands consistency, a quiet, steady loyalty to who you said you would be, even when no one's watching. Living by principles is a choice you make over and over again, often when no one else sees the moment. It happens in silence, in decisions that don't get applause, choosing patience over impulse, integrity over shortcuts, discipline over ease. It's the daily practice of doing what's right, not for recognition, not for applause, but because your inner compass says so. Imagine moving through your day knowing that no matter what curveball comes, your response will be shaped not by emotion, but by commitment. You're not pulled into drama. You're not sidetracked by someone else's noise. You know who you are and where you're headed. That kind of clarity is rare and powerful. It builds trust, not only with others, but with yourself. Because that's the real reward of living by principle. You begin to trust yourself. You know that you'll show up, even when it's hard. You know that when temptation knocks, when comfort calls, when pressure rises, you won't fold. That trust becomes your armor. And over time, it becomes your identity. You're no longer someone who tries to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You're no longer someone who hopes to stay consistent. You are consistent. And while others live at the mercy of their mood, you live by choice. Steady, strong, anchored. So ask yourself, what do you stand for when no one's looking? Who are you when no one is grading your effort? That answer will shape your life far more than any moment of motivation. Principles don't shout. They guide. And when you follow them long enough, you don't just live well, you become someone unshakable, someone real, someone you can count on, always. Owning your inner world, there's a force within you stronger than any storm outside, a place untouched by opinion, untouched by chaos, untouched by noise. But most never go there. They spend their lives pointing fingers, waiting for apologies, for perfect timing, for the world to soften. They walk around with a mind wide open to anything and anyone, letting every frustration, every slight, every passing inconvenience invade their peace. But you're different. You've decided to take the wheel, to take ownership, not of everything that happens, but of how you meet it. You understand that the world won't always bend in your favor. People won't always be fair. Things won't always go as planned. But you've made peace with that, because while you can't command the outside world, you can rule the inner one. You don't wait for happiness to arrive, you create it, not with noise, but with quiet decisions. The kind you make moment by moment, the kind no one else sees but you feel deeply. You don't depend on others to treat you a certain way for you to feel whole. You've learned to speak to yourself with respect, to guard your own thoughts like precious territory. You know that peace isn't something handed to you, it's something built. A discipline, a choice, a commitment to not letting temporary things wreck a permanent sense of who you are. Imagine being in a quiet room. Nothing is happening. No applause, no chaos, no conversations. Just you and your breath. In that space, you're calm. Not because the world calmed down, but because you did. You stopped chasing noise and started grounding yourself. That stillness is your strength, because once you've touched that kind of peace, you realize it's yours to return to at any time. No one can steal it. Not failure, not betrayal, not even loss. They may shake the surface, but the core remains. So when someone disrespects you, when the moment tries to stir you up, you pause, you ask yourself, do I really want to hand them the keys to my mind? And when something doesn't go your way, when the day doesn't cooperate, you ask, is this really worth trading my peace for? That pause, that awareness, that's ownership. It's not weakness. It's mastery. You're not pretending the world is perfect. You're simply choosing not to let its imperfections govern your state. You're focused on what's yours to change and letting go of what isn't. That alone puts you ahead of most. Because most are busy trying to fix the weather while you're adjusting your stride. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need every plan to unfold just right. You just need to remember that your power doesn't live out there. It lives in here. And once you own that fully, you realize you can face anything. You can lose and still not be lost. You can fall and still rise steady. Because your peace no longer depends on the world, it depends on you, expecting resistance and thriving anyway. Most people don't fall because they're incapable. They fall because they thought it would be simple. They pictured the path as smooth, the progress is quick, the rewards is guaranteed. So the moment friction shows up, they doubt themselves. They back off. They retreat into comfort and call it fate. But not you. You're not here to be surprised by struggle. You're here to meet it like an old rival. You expect resistance. You welcome it. And because of that, it will never break you. Every meaningful pursuit is lined with obstacles, not as punishment, but as invitation. The challenges are not there to block you. They're there to shape you. That steep path, that closed door, that slow progress, these are not failures. They are the weights that build your endurance, the sharpening stone for your will. You don't climb in spite of them, you climb because of them. There will be days when everything in you wants to stop, when the effort feels too much and the outcome too far. But these are the moments where your identity is forged. You are not the man who folds when life pushes back. You're the one who pushes harder. Because you've already decided that the presence of resistance doesn't mean something's wrong, it means something's working. Growth doesn't live in ease. It lives in tension, in pressure, in repetition. Picture yourself on a steep hill, pushing a heavy load. Your legs burn, your back aches. Others pass by and wonder why you're doing this at all. Some laugh. Some offer advice from the sidelines, never having climbed anything themselves. But you don't listen. You just keep climbing because you know what's waiting at the top. Not just the goal, but the version of you who earned it. You don't need shortcuts. You don't need praise. You just need to keep showing up. Every step you take under pressure is a statement. I will not break. I will not retreat. I will not hand over my future to the feeling of the moment. Let others chase what's easy. You've chosen what's worth it. Doubt will visit. Let it. Just don't let it stay. Fatigue will whisper. Let it talk, but don't let it lead. The climb is supposed to test you. It's supposed to stretch you. That's how you know it matters. That's how you know you're on the right path. You rise not because the path is smooth, but because it's steep and you refuse to stop. This is how the strong are made. Not in the moments when it's all going right, but in the quiet grind of days when everything feels uphill. You don't quit when it's hard. You rise because it's hard, and that makes you unstoppable. Becoming immune to insults. There will always be voices trying to pull you off course. Some loud, some subtle, some dressed in sarcasm, and others in concern. People will talk because it's easy. They'll form opinions without context, pass judgments without understanding, and throw stones from the comfort of their own fear. But none of that matters unless you choose to let it matter. Their words only become weight if you pick them up. You weren't made to be shaken by every whisper or to shrink under the pressure of someone else's projections. The real test isn't in how you defend yourself. It's in how little you need to. When you know who you are, the noise loses its edge. You realize that being misunderstood is not a crisis. It's just a sign you're walking a path too original for some to grasp. Let them talk. Let them fill rooms with speculation. While they use their time dissecting your moves, you use yours making the next one. You keep building, one brick at a time, undistracted, undeterred. Strength isn't proven in loud rebuttals or clever comebacks. It's proven in your ability to stay composed while others crumble into pettiness. You don't need to react to every jab. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Some things are beneath response. Picture yourself sitting at a long table. The room is full, laughter, chatter, clinking glasses, and then someone throws a jab your way, a snide remark, a comment meant to sting. You hear it, but you don't flinch. You don't rush to defend your name. You sit back, you smile, not because you're weak, but because you're unmoved. You understand that what was said came from a place of smallness. Their words speak volumes about them, not you. Your silence in that moment, that's not retreat, that's control, that's power. Because when you don't give people the reaction they crave, you starve their need for attention. You remove yourself from their game. And in doing so, you elevate, not just above the insult, but above the need to ever be understood by those who don't deserve access to your mind. Ask yourself, what's the point of explaining your vision to someone who's never built anything? Why lower your standards, your focus, just to be understood by those not even aiming in your direction? You don't owe anyone your peace just because they're uncomfortable with your presence. There is freedom in letting things slide. True freedom when insults no longer trigger, when judgment no longer rattles, when you walk through rooms untouched by opinions. You've stepped into a different kind of strength, one that can't be taken, one that doesn't seek validation. You keep your head high, your mind clear, your feet moving. Let others bark. You walk. You build, you become, and in that quiet confidence you find something rare, a peace that no one can reach. Replacing complaint with creation, every time you complain, you hand your power away. You give your energy to what's wrong instead of what could be made right. You turn your focus from your hands to your wounds, and while you're busy pointing fingers, time keeps moving. But when you decide to create instead, to build, to fix, to move, everything changes. You stop echoing problems and start becoming the solution. Most people see what's broken and respond with noise. They talk, they grumble, they sigh, and nod with others doing the same. It feels like movement, but it's not. It's delay disguised as dialogue. But you're not here for that. You're here to put your energy where it matters, into action. You see the same broken system, the same flaw, the same empty space, but where others point, you plan. Where they moan, you move. The world doesn't need more commentary. It needs more builders. It needs more people who respond to gaps with grit, not grief. Every frustration you feel is a signal, not a sign to sulk, but a call to rise. You don't like how something works? Then work on it. You don't see what you need? Then make it. You're not a spectator in your own life. You're the architect. You were never meant to sit back and critique the cracks. You were meant to lay the bricks. Picture walking into a place others have given up on. Dusty, broken, neglected. Most glance around and list what's wrong. They shake their heads and walk out. But you see potential where they see problems. You bring your tools, discipline, vision, effort, and you begin. You sweep, you mend, you build. And slowly, what was forgotten becomes valuable again. What was empty becomes filled. Not because it was easy, but because you did what most don't. You got to work. This is how real change happens. Not in grand announcements, but in quiet, persistent action. The kind done when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when nothing guarantees success except your own refusal to quit. You don't need approval to start. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to act. So when the next frustration rises, stop and ask yourself, will I be the one who complains or the one who creates? Will I speak about the problem or speak through the solution I build with my own two hands? Because every moment you choose creation over complaint, you're stacking bricks under your own feet. You're rising. And when you rise like that, day after day, silently building, quietly refusing to stop, you become something rare. You become the one people look to when things fall apart. The one who doesn't fold under the weight of what's wrong, but who shapes what's next. That's where your power lives, in what you build, not in what you say, not in what you wish, but in what you do. Detaching from outcome, attaching to effort. You want to succeed. You want to live in peace. But the harder you clutch the outcome, the more it slips through your hands. That's the paradox. The more you obsess over where it all leads, the more you lose sight of what matters, who you become in the doing. Real freedom isn't found in the finish line. It's found in the steps, in the discipline to keep walking without needing guarantees. You don't control how the world responds to your effort, but you do control whether you give that effort fully. It's easy to get caught in the trap of results, to measure your worth by applause, numbers, recognition, to tie your identity to whether things are working on the outside. But that's not mastery, that's dependency. And dependency will always leave you empty, constantly needing proof that you're enough. But what if your focus shifted? What if your aim wasn't the reward, but the rhythm? Not the trophy, but the training. You show up because that's who you are. You give your best because it's the only way you know how to move through the world. And then you release. You let the outcome land where it may. That isn't surrender. It's control of the highest order. It's knowing that what defines you is never the result, but the process you commit to. That's where your power lives. Imagine planting a seed. You dig the hole. You place it gently. You water it. You ensure it has sunlight. You don't stand over it demanding it grow faster. You don't rip it from the ground each morning to check for signs of life. If you did, you'd kill it. Growth needs time. Your only job is the tending, the care, the consistency, the patience. The rest is not your burden to bear. So ask yourself, are you showing up fully today, or just waiting for life to reward you before you feel worthy? Because the truth is, if you don't find joy in the doing, you'll never find it in the having. Even when success arrives, it will feel empty, because you were never really in love with the work, only the outcome. But when your fulfillment comes from the effort itself, from knowing you gave your all with no guarantees, then nothing can break you. You become untouchable, unmoved by setbacks, unshaken by silence. Success, when it arrives, becomes a quiet companion, not your purpose, but a result of your persistence. Those who endure, who rise again and again without needing constant reward, they are the ones who go furthest. They don't look for shortcuts. They don't need validation. They trust the process. And because of that, the process rewards them, not always quickly, not always loudly, but always completely. So stay loyal to the work. Trust the roots you've planted. Let go of the timeline. Show up like it matters, because it does. And when you do, success won't be the goal. It will be the echo of your consistency. Practicing emotional mastery, you feel it rise, the sting of being misunderstood, the burn of anger in your chest, the knot of anxiety twisting in your gut. These feelings are real, they're human, but they don't get to drive. Emotional mastery isn't about turning off the current, it's about learning how to swim through it without drowning. It's not suppression, it's direction. You feel everything fully, and yet you remain steady. Not because you're numb, but because you've trained yourself to choose clarity over chaos. Think of a river, still and smooth on the surface, yet beneath it flows with power and depth. That's the man who has learned to lead himself. He doesn't ignore what he feels. He simply doesn't let it control the wheel. He knows that a reaction in haste is often a regret in waiting. So he pauses, he breathes. He puts space between emotion and response, and in that space, he reclaims his strength. There is a difference between being emotional and being emotionally intelligent. One is swayed by every gust of feeling. The other listens, learns, and then leads. When someone snaps at you, when life delivers another unexpected hit, you don't have to mirror the chaos. You can remain grounded, not because you don't care, but because you care more about staying aligned with who you are than indulging in temporary fire. Imagine moving through a day without being hijacked by every mood swing, every provocation, every moment of discomfort. Imagine receiving the same challenges, the same pressure, but responding with patience, with poise, that life exists. And it starts with training your mind to become bigger than whatever feeling visits it. Each morning, you make a silent commitment. I will not be led by the first emotion that knocks. You start watching your thoughts like a guard at the gate. You let the anger speak, but you don't give it a weapon. You let the fear whisper, but you don't let it paralyze you. You don't dismiss the feeling. You assess it. You ask, is this useful? Will this build me or break me? And from there, you act, not out of impulse, but out of intent. This doesn't mean the journey is easy. It's not. There will be days when rage pushes hard, when sorrow clouds everything, when you'll want to shout, retreat, or quit. But even then, you'll remember, Feelings are guests. I am the host. They come and go. You remain. When you stop being a follower of your emotions and start becoming their leader, something shifts. You no longer live at their mercy. You carry peace like armor, not because the world is quiet, but because you are. And from that quiet, you operate. Calm, not because nothing touches you, but because nothing controls you. That's emotional mastery, not a denial of your humanity, but the full embrace of it with your hands still on the wheel. Defining yourself by purpose, not by praise. There will always be the lure of applause, the rush that comes when people notice your work, your effort, your presence. It's loud, seductive, and fleeting. It makes you feel seen, valued, maybe even important for a moment. But if you build your life around it, if you tie your worth to the sound of approval, then you're walking a fragile road. Because applause fades, crowds move on. And when they do, what's left? If your fire only burns when others are watching, it will die the moment the lights go out. But you're not here for shallow echoes. You're here to dig deeper, to find something within that doesn't need noise to feel real. That something is purpose. Purpose doesn't cheer. It doesn't post headlines, but it stays. When the days are quiet, when the work feels thankless, when no one's watching, that's when purpose speaks the loudest. And that's where your strength is born. It's tempting to shape yourself for applause, to adjust your message, your posture, even your dreams to suit what others find comfortable. But every time you do, you move one step further from who you truly are. You start performing instead of living. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a mirror for the crowd instead of a fire of your own. You've seen it happen. People who shine only when praised and who shrink the moment they're ignored or criticized. That's not confidence, that's captivity. A life ruled by recognition is a life forever at the mercy of strangers. But when you turn inward, when you root yourself in the quiet truth of what matters to you, what you believe in, what drives you beyond applause, then you rise. Not because the world cheers you on, but because you've chosen to cheer for yourself. Picture yourself alone in a workshop. The walls are bare. No audience, no applause. Just you, your tools, and your vision. You're crafting something the world doesn't see yet, maybe doesn't understand, and still you work, you refine, you return day after day, not because it's glamorous, but because it's yours. That is the measure of real power. Not how loudly people celebrate you, but how deeply you stay connected to your work, your path, your reason for walking it. Ask yourself honestly, if no one ever clapped, would I still build this? Would I still write this, speak this, give this effort? If the answer is yes, then you're free, because now your fire isn't tied to attention, it's tied to conviction. And from that place, no rejection can truly touch you, no insult can sink you, no silence can shake you. When you live from purpose, you stop waiting for permission, you stop adjusting for approval. You become someone who moves with certainty, even in a world that may never fully understand your direction. And that's where your impact begins, quietly, unshakably, authentically, accepting what you cannot change. You spend so much of your strength pushing against what won't move. You replay conversations that won't change, argue with outcomes already written, and exhaust yourself trying to bend the uncontrollable to your will. But peace, real, steady peace, begins the moment you understand the difference between what is yours to shape and what was never yours to carry. So this isn't surrender, it's clarity. It's not giving up, it's growing up. There's wisdom in knowing when to act and when to let go. The rain doesn't answer your frustration. The past doesn't shift because you regret it harder, and people won't become what you need them to be just because you gave them every chance. What you can always choose, though, is your response. That choice is yours in every moment, and it's there where your freedom lives. When someone breaks your trust, you could drown in anger, or you could decide to rise. Not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by choosing not to let the hurt define your path. When a plan falls apart, you could cling to it, drag it behind you like dead weight. Or you could look around and realize the road didn't end, it just turned. Think of a blacksmith standing before the fire. The heat is intense, the steel unyielding, But the blacksmith doesn't resist the fire. He doesn't curse the flame or fight the heat. He works with it because he knows that the same fire that burns is the one that molds. He accepts it, uses it, and creates something stronger. That's what acceptance looks like. Not passivity, not weakness, just the refusal to waste energy resisting the necessary heat of life. You are not made to fold under what you can't change. You're made to redirect that energy into what you can change, into how you carry yourself, into how you respond, into the small daily acts of intention that eventually reshape everything. It's easy to stay stuck in what went wrong, to let one rejection, one disappointment, one loss narrow your vision. But every time you fixate on what's gone, you miss what's still available. And there's always something still available. Ask yourself, am I exhausting myself trying to change a wall when I could be walking through the open door next to it? Am I giving so much attention to what didn't go my way that I'm blind to what still can? Acceptance doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you no longer let what's out of your hands run your life. You stop throwing yourself against locked doors. You stop pouring your light into places that won't reflect it. You shift, you breathe, you continue. And the moment you do, something remarkable happens. You become lighter, wiser, free. Not because life stopped being hard, but because you stopped fighting the parts of it that aren't yours to fix. And now, with that weight gone, you can finally focus on what is, building the habit of delayed judgment. You move through life seeing, hearing, experiencing, and almost instantly your mind wants to name it: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure. The moment something unfolds, you slap a label on it, as if you already understand its meaning. But truth rarely shows up all at once. It unfolds slowly, often in ways you can't predict. And this instinct to judge too quickly, it traps you, it steals your calm. It blinds you to the depth behind the surface. What seems like a loss today may be the very thing that sets you free tomorrow. That setback you cursed might be the hand that turned you toward the path you were meant to walk. But if you judge too soon, you miss that. You resist what was meant to shape you. You resent what was meant to refine you. And in that rush to declare something as wrong, you stop listening to what it might actually be trying to teach you. You've lived this. You've felt the sting of disappointment when something didn't go your way, a rejection, a delay, a closed door. It felt like failure. It felt unfair. But then time passed, and with it came understanding. You saw the redirection, the lesson, the strength you gained. Suddenly, what once felt like punishment revealed itself as protection or preparation, and you realized your judgment was just premature. Imagine someone says something that cuts deep. The old you might react quickly, harshly, with fire. But what happens when you don't? When you pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this who I am? That single moment of space, that decision not to meet insult with reaction, becomes your victory, because now you're not being pulled by emotion, you're guided by intention. This is what it means to delay judgment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you give reality time to show itself. It means you understand that the surface is never the full story. What someone says or does, what a moment feels like, is just a piece of a much larger picture still being painted. And your peace depends on seeing that bigger picture, or at the very least, trusting that it exists. So the next time life pushes back, when something doesn't look how you hoped, ask yourself, am I reacting to the whole truth or just to my first impression of it? Could this pain, this confusion, this detour actually be part of something I don't yet see? When you train yourself to wait before you decide, to stay open before you declare, you stop giving your calm away to moments that haven't earned it. You stop letting temporary feelings shape permanent beliefs. You move from being ruled by reaction to anchored in clarity. And clarity doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It arrives slowly, but when it does, it changes everything. It gives you back your peace. And with peace, you move not just smarter, but stronger. Mastering the power of routine. It's easy to think that life turns on the grand moments, the big breaks, the major decisions, the dramatic turning points. But the truth is far quieter. Your life isn't built in those loud, unforgettable flashes. It's shaped almost entirely by what you do when no one is watching, by the tiny choices that seem too small to matter, by the repeated actions that carve out who you become. Day after day, quietly and consistently, you are building your future or avoiding it. Greatness doesn't arrive in a lightning bolt. It's not gifted through talent or granted through luck. It's earned slowly in the repetition of effort. In the decision to show up again when it would be easier not to. The real power is in consistency. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it is undeniable. When you develop the discipline to stick with your work, your training, your principles, even when the excitement fades, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd. Routine is more than a schedule. It's a stabilizer. It's the rhythm that keeps you grounded when everything else starts to spin. In chaos and setbacks and uncertainty, your routine reminds you of who you are. It brings order when the world feels scattered. It doesn't require you to feel great every day. It simply asks you to show up. Picture this. You wake up and move with purpose. You don't wait for inspiration. You don't need the world to motivate you. You have a pattern, a rhythm, a process that sets your tone. While others scramble to find direction, you've already stepped into yours. While others look for energy, you're already building momentum. That's what a strong routine gives you. Not just structure, but forward motion. Ask yourself honestly, are your daily actions aligned with who you want to become, or are they just habits that pass the time? Because your routine is not neutral. It's either sharpening you or dulling you. Every day you're either reinforcing discipline or feeding distraction. And over time, those small decisions don't stay small. They define everything. You don't rise to the level of your ambition when things get tough. You fall to the level of what you've trained yourself to do in the dark. That's where the truth shows itself, not in your goals, but in your patterns, in the habits you repeat, especially when it's hard. And when your routine is solid, disruptions don't throw you. Pressure doesn't paralyze you, because your rhythm holds firm. There's nothing dramatic about quiet consistency, but it wins. It builds strength that doesn't waver, identity that doesn't fracture, and progress that no one can take from you. Your power is in the simple choice to keep showing up again and again and again. That's where growth lives. That's where greatness begins. Not in the moment the world sees it, but in the mornings and nights where only you know what you've committed to, developing an inner standard. You'll face moments where the easy way calls your name, where speed is more seductive than quality, and compromise feels safer than conviction. The world around you will whisper shortcuts, offer applause for half-finished work, and reward those who play the game just enough to win but never enough to earn. But if you want to build something that lasts, something that lives beyond the moment, you have to ignore that noise. You have to raise your standard, not to impress others, but to honor who you are. This standard isn't written anywhere. No one hands it to you. It lives in the quiet space between what you could get away with and what you choose to do anyway. It's not for show. It's not for credit. It's the invisible code you live by when no one's watching. That code, that's what separates the powerful from the passive. Not skill, not luck, but the refusal to take the easy way when a better way is available. When you hold yourself to something higher, you don't need discipline imposed from the outside. You become your own guardrail. You work not for permission, not for applause, but for pride. The quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need validation because it already knows the truth, that excellence isn't about being seen, it's about being solid. A man who respects his own standards walks differently, not arrogantly, but unshakably, because he knows what he stands on. Picture a craftsman in a dim workshop, smoothing a piece of wood no one will ever see. He works not because someone is watching, but because his name is on the final product, even if no one ever finds it. His pride is in the process, in the care, in the choice to give more when less would do. That's the level of integrity that builds legacy. Quiet effort, quiet mastery, quiet, consistent strength. Now imagine living that way, making decisions not based on reward, but on principle. Showing up for your work, your word, your craft, not because of who's watching, but because of who you are. Would you still do it if no one knew? Would you still give your best if it earned no applause? These are the questions that reveal your foundation. When your standard lives inside you, you become unshakable. You don't bend every time someone doubts you. You don't collapse when things go wrong. Your code carries you. It becomes your armor. You don't just rise when things are good. You rise especially when they're not. Because your effort isn't tied to outcome. It's tied to identity. That's how you live above the noise. That's how you become the kind of man whose work speaks for itself, quietly, clearly, and without compromise. A man built from within, unmoved, undeniable, seeing setbacks as training. It didn't go the way you planned. The door closed. The effort fell flat. You gave your best and it still wasn't enough. That sting in your chest, that's real, and it matters, but it's not the end, not even close. Because while most see failure as a wall, you know better. You know it's a mirror, a teacher, a forge. This isn't where the road ends. This is where your resilience begins. Setbacks have a way of speaking, if you're willing to listen. They don't arrive to destroy you, even if they bruise your pride. They show up to refine you, to reveal the parts of you still untested, to surface the weaknesses hiding behind momentum. It's in these moments, when the crowd is silent and the lights have dimmed, that you decide who you really are, not when things are easy, but when they aren't. Imagine a fighter in a gym, day after day taking hits. Not because he enjoys the pain, but because he knows the pain has a purpose. The jabs he absorbs today prepare him for the fight ahead. The sting in his ribs, the stumble on the mat. It's all part of the process. Every misstep is a step forward if he learns from it. You're no different. Life will swing. It will knock you down. And when it does, you have a choice. Fold or focus. Failure in the hands of someone unprepared leads to retreat. But in the hands of someone committed, it leads to refinement. You step back, not in surrender, but in strategy. You ask the hard questions. What am I missing? What is this moment showing me? Where do I need to grow? That curiosity becomes your compass. It turns pain into progress. It shifts the narrative from defeat to development. Most stop when the result doesn't match the effort. They take one blow and decide the fight isn't worth it. But you're not most. You're here to rise again and again, not out of stubbornness, but out of purpose. Because you understand the game. You understand that this isn't punishment for aiming high. It's preparation for holding more. And if you walk through it right, you'll come out stronger, sharper, and more grounded than you've ever been. So ask yourself, what if this isn't failure, but training? How would I move now? What would I focus on? What would I build within myself in the meantime? The answers to those questions will shape your recovery, and your recovery will shape your legacy. You don't grow by getting everything right. You grow by refusing to stay down when things go wrong. You grow by meeting each setback not with shame, but with self-respect. That's how you become the kind of person no hardship can hold back, because you no longer fear the fall. You've learned to rise from it, and every time you do, you rise higher. Choosing courage over comfort. Comfort has a way of wrapping itself around you like a warm blanket on a